Hello! It tells me I'm live. Oh, that needs some oil, doesn't it? Oh dear, that's my microphone stand. Hello! Who do we have with us? Oh, Carol! Carol is in the house. As is Segoe. Am I pronouncing that right? I hope so. Good to have you with us. Oh, Eagle. Eagle is fabulous. Absolutely. App of the year. Got to agree. We have a full complement of Carols. Hello, Carol.
You are live.
Excellent. And Willem. Very, very good to have you with us. And young Jonathan's in the house as well. Excellent. And Patience. Yay. We're doing rather well tonight.
And Tony Blythe.
Oh.
Blast from the past.
Hang on, mine's jumping all over the place here. I think it's got giddy. Well, I was heading up to Graham, I think. I was. Hello, Graham. Hello, Peter. Hello, Deb, CQ. Oh, John, did we tempt you with Affinity? Oh, yes, that's coming up last, to be honest. But don't worry. I think the other things are going to be quite short. Because we like Affinity, don't we? Kimmy is in the house. Hello, Kim. And who else have we got? Tony. Good evening to you, Tony. Hello, Pete. Oh, we're all here tonight. James, hello, good evening. And, right, I think we're done. I think we're all there. And Patience is officially teaching, not subbing. Congratulations. We do like that. Excellent. I said to Mike before we started, I don't like it when everything seems to be fine. You'd think I would, but no. I'm like, something's going to drop off the end any moment now. I swear it is. Like that. There you go. I knew it would. Let's move forward and forget that ever happened. I knew something would happen. Right, here we go. We have the craft update. It's rather nice. A few tweaks, but the backlinks. Oh, so I'll show you that. Then we've got Microsoft Office for iPad. You might love it. I'll just leave that there. Guess who's less than warm with that one? Then there's some fantastically interesting updates to Google Workspace. We have a freebie. It's from Microsoft, but don't worry. It's quite funny being from Microsoft, isn't it? It's worth looking at. Let's put it like that. Then Mike is working with dates, part 2. It's date night, part 2.
It's date night.
It is. And then we have Affinity Designer, Styles, Dials, and much more. Now, where did the styles and dials come from? I think it was me fiddling around, having fun in Affinity. So, yes, that's going to be the longest bit of the night, you'll be glad to know. So, we're broadcasting in 1080p. Are you receiving in 1080p? Because YouTube's done all sorts to me this week. What was interesting, though, was I was looking at this video and I could have sworn it was 4K. And it wasn't, it was 1080. So I think they've improved something along the way as well. While you are down in the lower right-hand corner fiddling with the cog, there's a like button. You could click that like button, couldn't you? You could. Make me happy. Right, so we're not doing the Saturday thing because last week we went live on Saturday, so we don't have a Saturday thing. What we do have is a Sunday thing. Let's just say, I usually say, don't I, Mike? It's one of my lines. It didn't end well. This did end well. It was the agony I was going through before it ended well that was the problem. Yes, Affinity agony. You could well be suffering from the same Affinity agony that I was, which was horrific. Anytime I ran an Affinity app on my shiny new computer, well, it's a year old now, but shiny new, 128 gig of RAM, ultra fast, it took 37 bounces in the dock before it sprang to life. Not even joking. It was bad. In the same session, if you closed an app down, it would either open within like 2 or 3 bounces of the icon in the dock, or it would go back and it would take another 30 odd seconds. And it was horrific. I got to the point it was that bad, there was nothing else I could do but fix it. So I uninstalled all of the apps because they were from the App Store. And I reinstalled them with the direct versions from Affinity. More time later than I dare to think about, I was back to where I should have been in the first place. All 3 apps running within 2 to 3 bounces in the dock, and everything was fine. So for me, the fix was uninstall the ones from the App Store and install the direct version. But that's because I happen to have the direct version. Do let me know in the chat if this is happening to you. because I have seen it before. The reason it wasn't as impactful before was on my old machine. I had the direct versions installed for 2 of the apps, and there was only the third one that was from the App Store. And the reason that I've bought them in both places is sometimes, I just need to install it, and I'm not playing around with verification service and all of the rest of it. But if I actually wanted to get anything done, I'm going to have to use the direct versions. So, pro tip there. Oh, Willem says, my publisher bounces a lot on the M1 Mac. I wonder if is it an App Store version, or is it just something else to do with the M1 Max? Luckily, my problem's solved, but we shall now troubleshoot yours. Right, while all that was happening, well, I got to the end of that, and then Mike's excitement happened. Tesco arrived, but this was not until there had been a horrific hissy fit from Mike. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it was a bad one. They let him down again in the gluten-free department. Tesco need to understand there's only so much disappointment a man can take in the gluten-free biscuit department. But they did actually. They lied to you as well before the hissy fit. He was thinking there was no biscuits, but actually there was just fewer biscuits than he wanted. So it wasn't as horrific as it could have been.
No, but the hissy fit did involve an iPhone being thrown across the room.
Ooh, it's all right. It survived. Don't worry. But he was in a very, very, very hissy fit, which took us on to Monday. And this epitomised my week. We've just mentioned in the chat, haven't we? Wasn't that Cezzy saying that Eagle, fabulous? Oh, yes, indeed it is. But there was rain in my troubled country. Oh, Alfred and Eagle shortcuts were clashing, which wouldn't be a huge deal if I could just change them in one app or the other. And I wasn't even bothered which. The shortcut I'm talking about is the shortcut in Eagle to take a screen cap is Control Option Command and the full stop. And I thought I can live with that, that's fine. Every time I used it though, Alfred appeared as well. So the shortcut was doing 2 things. So I had Alfred upside down looking for where this shortcut was coming from. Couldn't find it at all. So then I thought, right, I'll change it in Eagle. That'll do. As long as everything works, I'm fine. Eagle wouldn't have it. It would not let me change that shortcut. It said it did, but it was lying. So then I was back to Alfred. Anyway, long story short, I needed to put in a support ticket for that one. We'll come back to that later, because by this stage, Mike had succeeded in getting, we talked about Hobnobs, my favourite biscuits, which I've not been able to eat since the late 80s because they weren't gluten-free. Well, now there was gluten-free ones, but I put in a complaint because Hobnobs had chocolate on. And these Hobnobs Mike got didn't have chocolate on, but look what he managed to secure. Milk chocolate, gluten-free Hobnobs. What could possibly go wrong? Well, I was all right because, still no Yule log, but at least I had a treat of some description. What could go wrong at this late stage? The chocolate on a Hobnob, this is most important, should be on the top, not the bottom. I mean, this is just no. This is as diversive as the Cornish tea, jam before cream. Or cream before jam. It's jam before cream. Graham will know that, won't he? He'll know all about that, Graham. But no, that these had chocolate on the bottom. Yeah, that wasn't fair. But while I was contemplating that was just totally wrong, I did hear back from Alfred with the support ticket. Yes, I was hoisted by my own petard. I'd put this shortcut key in, apparently. I just couldn't find it. Anyway, it was sorted and everything was good. So at this stage, I'm thinking, OK, I'll write Monday off. I'll start working on Tuesday. So I headed into Tuesday, which was when I made the fatal error of opening my Scrivener file. Now, this Scrivener file has been around for about 10 years. So it was a little bit in need of some TLC, shall we just say. Yeah, it was a car crash. It was awful. The icons were pixelated. Oh, there were no keywords. What was I thinking? It was bad. So I spent way longer than I should have done fixing it, which meant by the end of the day, I was in a blissful oasis of calm reflection in Scrivener. And I'll stay there until the next thing breaks, obviously. But have you ever had it, Mike, where you spend the whole day working and then at the end of it you realise you were just moving the deck chairs around?
Yes.
Yeah, it was that. But it did look mighty pretty when I'd finished, so I was ready for work, which took me on to Wednesday. Now, you all know that I like to keep my systems up to date, and I am the only person on the planet who reads the release notes, which is good news, isn't it, Mike? Because we're coming on to that on Thursday, I think. But release notes for this one, tinge on the tricky side. A tinge on the tricky side. But you'll notice, unsurprisingly, iCloud rated a mention. So I figured they'd fix something in relation to iCloud. But, you never know. So while I was fighting with that, thinking, do I install this or not, there was a match. And somebody was a tinge on the nervy side, weren't you? But it was all right. Well, it was until 5 minutes from the end. And then while United were 3-0 up and Mike was glorifying himself, they let Brentford score. But, it could have been worse, couldn't it, Mike? It could have been a whole lot worse, couldn't it?
Could it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It could have gone totally the other way.
Yeah.
So it comes to Thursday, and I don't know about you, but obviously putting the show on a Friday, Thursday I've got to start thinking about what I'm doing in the show. So it involved part 3, if you recall, or it did, of the PowerPoint presenting data thing. Now this time we weren't just relying on PowerPoint. We were going to have to rely, this was a forced reliance, it wasn't my idea, on Excel as well, because the Excel chart engine is what powers PowerPoint's charts. What could go wrong? Glad you asked. I opened PowerPoint. Some chart types can't be combined with other chart types. Select a different chart type. So I'm sat in PowerPoint and I'd said insert a chart, and that's what I got. This was because Mike had mentioned, you've been in a meeting, hadn't you? And it wasn't looking good. So I then gets the message that Excel had quit unexpectedly. Yeah, I thought it was unexpected as well, seeing as I would not even run Excel. But PowerPoint calls Excel in the background. This wasn't looking good for a live demo tonight. In fact, it got a whole lot worse than that. I just kept getting these error messages all over the place. And I said to Mike, does it eventually stop asking? And he said, yes. So obviously I wasn't going to report it. I was going to hit the ignore button. Now, the reason this happened to me and might not have happened to you, but did happen to you, didn't it? Because you actually manually updated like a muppet. You broke your own. So he comes in and says to me, got a problem with this. So I tried it, and yes, I did. And he said, well, why did you update? And I said, I didn't. I've got it set to automatically update. At which point there was an almighty drawing in of breath. Are you insane, woman? Answer to that, yes. But it did fix itself today, but obviously too late for me to include it, which was why we've got an Affinity designer bit. But seeing as though you all seem to prefer that anyway, no problem really, was it? Which takes me to today. And today was all about being prepared for tonight. So we're good to go. Right. Do we have any questions at that stage?
Pete wants to know if we've seen Slack, and I said yes.
Yes, I have. Mike put me onto that. Thank you very much. And congratulations. The book looks mighty heavy, doesn't it? Oh, yes. So is it actually available in stores now, in all good bookstores?
W.A. Smith.
Well, I was thinking Amazon. Put the link in, Pete. Put the link into Amazon. Right, let's have a look at Craft. So there has been a Craft update. Craft we have had deployed here. It's part of our tech stack for a year now. And despite the fact we have Notion, despite the fact we have, what else do we use? Roam, and a million others, there is a place for Craft for a particular job for us. But it is a very good app. So they've been very busy updating themselves, and there has been, I think it was 9 specific updates. So some of them are fairly basic, but like quality of life improvements. So the first one is that you can star a document from the document. And I thought about it. I thought, I don't think I've ever starred a document. why is that not in my workflow? And probably because you couldn't do it from the document itself, but it's now part of the sidebar and you can. Personally speaking, the biggest improvement is the backlinks. Now, there's backlinks and there's backlinks. These backlinks aren't bad, but if you're used to Roam or Obsidian, they're not those kind of backlinks. We don't use them at all, do we, in Notion? They're kind of there, and it's like, yeah, just cover those up because I'm never going to use them. We build our own navigation. But sometimes it's handy to have backlinks in there. So I'm actually going to show you what you can do with the backlinks. Then there's updates to the sketch feature. So you can actually draw in Craft, which is a little bit better than Notion. You can do things in Notion, but Craft makes it easier because it's all built in, and they've updated that. Craft does have the ability to have a daily page or notes that are linked to a calendar. And it's not just a calendar. So if you know Roam, when you open it, you get a daily page. It's not exactly a calendar, it's a daily page. And every page can have a daily page. In Craft, it links it to your calendar. And you can now decide whether you want what day you want the week to start on. And it's not just Sunday or Monday. It's the whole range. The whole 7 days. You can start whenever you like. Another tiny quality of life thing is when you're looking on smaller screens are going to feature a lot tonight, Mike. But when you're looking on smaller screens and you've got a table, the integrated scroll bar is just annoying. So they've taken it away and you can now just scroll the table. So like I'm saying, these are tiny things that just do it kind of updates. But I've got a list for Notion to do with that and they're not really playing ball. So I like to see the just do it updates updated. Then we have an update where you can navigate on mobile devices because Craft is mobile first. You can either pull down or do a 2-fingered tap and it will bring you up this navigation popover like a HUD. And I must admit, I'd never actually pulled down. I didn't do the search thing. I think it's because I've built it in such a way that I know where things are and I don't particularly do it that way. But there you go. Other thing they've done is updates to the Craft X platform. In particular, the integration between Craft and Things. So unlike Notion that wants to be all things to all people, in Craft they appreciate you may want to send something from Craft to Things, replete with all of the text, etc. And you can do that. And then we have the send to. So the send to is where you can actually send it to other applications. So if you're writing in Craft and you want to publish from Ulysses, you can just send it to Ulysses. And obviously the thing for me that's the biggest integration is Things, although I don't tend to do it that much. But if you do, you'll like that. Right, I need to whip that across there. And let's actually go and have a look at just a couple of those features. So where's Craft? Right, and back to the top. So the first thing I'll do is just show you how simple it is to star a document. So obviously, oh look, there's Lola. That was polling day in 2019. I don't think she voted for the Muppet that's allegedly in charge now. In fact, I'm sure she didn't. She'd vote for anybody who had a dentist stick, wouldn't she?
Yeah.
That's her favourite treat. Right, while we are in here, we have the sidebar over on the right, and this is separated into different tabs. So most of the time, if you're working with the content, you'll be working with the styles. But on the information here, this is the page information. One of the additions before Christmas was the ability to trash a document from the document. And now they've added another action, which is starring the document. So with it unstarred, if we go into the starred documents on the left, there is nothing there. But if we go back to our inbox and Lola at the polling station and star the document, when we go to the starred documents, that one is there. So I can't see you using that in such a way that, you have a starred document there forever and ever. But it's certainly a good idea when you're working with things to get to it quickly. And that integrates with the navigation on the iPhone, where you can 2-finger tap, and one of the options that's right there under your fingers is to get to the starred documents. So fairly simple to do. Let's have the, oh look at this, reclining delicately because it was raining, so she was sulking. And we're still in the page info down to the star document, and we now have 2 of them. So that is how that works. The much more useful one, potentially, is the backlinks. So what are backlinks and how do backlinks work? Well, we had some sessions last year. We had Mad March and we had Mad May. And if we go to Mad May, these were the sessions across the top, and they are in date order. And this one down here was the admin for it. So Mike and I were sharing this at the time, and we had the 5 sessions to deal with. So if we go into Mad May, the information that we had in here was links to the actual sessions themselves. So if somebody had missed a session, Mike could quickly just select the whole of that, copy and paste it into YouTube. So this page, it was important that you could get to this page from all of the other pages. So here's some of the other pages. So this that we've got here is a link. And when I hover over it, you get this preview. It's really nice, that preview. I love that. Notion doesn't do that. I love that. And what that will do is if you click it, it will take you back to the Mad May page. But that is what they call a backlink. So this page here, if we look at it, where it says links to page, it's the pages that have a link to this page. And if we look at each of these, there is a Mad May link there, and it's at the top of every one of these. So irrespective of which session we're in, if you want to quickly get back to there so you can copy one of these links, that's how you do it. So these pages themselves, going down here, they don't have backlinks. I haven't backlinked, I haven't linked to that page from anywhere. It would make sense to do that. But first of all, I'm going to show you the links to this page. So at the bottom, it says links to this page. That is where the backlinks are stored. Now, backlinks themselves are something that are a technique that's inside any application that is a networked notes app. So Evernote can do links, but they're not automatic. Things like Google Docs can do links, but they're not automatic. Backlinks are automatic. So these are happening and appearing on this page without me doing a thing. Contrast that with this page where, again, no backlinks. So Mad March didn't have any backlinks, but Mad May did. And this is being populated just from the fact that the 5 session pages have a link to this page. That's all a backlink is. You have the show button to actually look at these links, so you can see them. And the useful thing here is you can open up these and it will actually take you to the page where the link is. So they do become bidirectional backlinks. And you can open them all at once and you can do other things with them, which I am about to show you. So on the 3 dots here, if this is hidden, no 3 dots, that's a nice touch. Most of them just leave the interface languishing. But once you've got it open, you have these 3 dots. And from there, you've got a range of things you can do. So one is expand, and that is going to expand them all. You can also collapse them all. Obviously, you can open these independently and go back using the backlink. But you can also sort them alphabetically, which in this case should be right, because we always put the date at the front. So if we do that, and you click it again, it goes the other way. So if you want the newest at the top, you can do that. You can sort by the date created. In this case, that wouldn't give me a thing. But you can also sort by the number of links. So you could have a page that's linking back to this page from 3 different places. Now you might think, no, I'd never do that, but you might. So something like this, this is the actual backlink. That there is the backlink. So I'm going to copy that because there's lots and lots and lots of stuff here. I might want a link back to Mad May admin from the bottom. So all I need to do is paste it, and I can format this in any way that I want to. So if I want it as a title or a subheading or anything else, I can do that. So this page now has 2 links back to Mad May admin. If we go back to Mad May admin and scroll down, you can see that this deep dive data merge now has 2 backlinks to it. When you go inside, they're not exactly gripping. It just says Mad May Admin, because that's what I would want to see in that page. But that is how the backlinks work, and it can build you a kind of networked structure as you're working with, in this case, it was sessions, but it could be written books that you're doing, it could be articles, it could be your entire blog up there. So these can be incredibly useful. I must admit, in here, I think of them as links to the page. And for me, that's slightly different to what I'm used to, because in Rome, I have block level linking. And yeah, in here, I must admit, if I wanted some navigation, the odds are I'd build it myself and rather not rely on the backlinks. But it's there, and you can hide it if you're not interested. And on the odd occasion where I'm thinking, what is linking to this page, it's fast enough to go in and sort it out. But that example, they were already there. So I'm just showing you what these links look like and how to use them when they're already there. But what if they're not already there? So if we look at this Mad March admin, no backlinks, but it's fairly simple to be able to add them. So if we go into this one here, do you know, I swore I'd put some space in to put these in. I'm at the top, the very top of my notes for delivering this. And I want to make sure that I can get back to the Mad March admin. So how I do that is and then I put Mad March admin. And it filters down and shows me that that's the page I want. Okay, and that's this one here. And again, I can format that any way that I want. That is a backlink. Now, it is actually just a link. But when you get to Mad March's page, it knows at the bottom that you've added a link to this page. And this is where the term backlink really applies, because you can go in there and see, yep, there's a link to it, and that's the link that's linking to it. Now, you could go through that process with the @ and then name it, or you can just copy it. Then as you go into the other ones, you paste that in. So I'm going to just paste it into each one. And it is going to generate me all the backlinks from that index page. So when I go into Mad March admin, I've got all of the backlinks in there. Now, I do actually do this with Notion, but we do tend... It's a little bit more complicated in Notion. Notion has databases and Craft doesn't. But this is a good way to kind of build a navigation if you don't think you're going to need it. But if in the future you do, it's as simple as that. So all you need to do to get to the right page in here is open it up and click it. And then if you want to get back to the index, you just click on the link that you've added and it will take you back to the index. So that is the way that they've improved that, by allowing you to hide it, sort them, organise them, if you want to use them. I tend to hide them, but your mileage may vary. So let me know if you use this. Let me know. Right, so that was Craft. Let's get rid of Craft and let's get back into here. Right, what was our next thing we were looking at? Oh, this will be fun. It's always fun when I've got to show an iPad. Always fun. Right, Microsoft Office for iPad has been updated. It is just an interface update, so functionally, it's not that different. Am I a fan? Well, I'm calling it the ghostly interface update. I must admit, I'm not overly keen, but let's see what you think. So I need to share multiple iPads, so let me get them out of the way. I'm going to start with my M1 12.9-inch iPad. So let's get that shared on the screen. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Always a nervy time. Go on, you know you want to. Awesome. Right. So we have the Office apps at the bottom. They have all been updated, but I have them configured to the old interface. So I'm going in there and I'm going to start with Word. And I'll get a new blank document. You are about to see a huge difference in speed between this iPad and an old iPad. But this iPad is the M1 iPad. So that's the interface we've been using up to now. So the blue stripe across the top indicates that it's Word, and PowerPoint is orange and Excel is green. But it also, to me, separates out the actual tools from the groupings of the tools and other functionality. So the tools themselves are in Home, Insert, Draw, Layout, Review and View. They're the groupings. Underneath are the individual tools. So there is some delineation between the two. And things that apply to the whole document are within that blue area. So you've got the navigation on the left-hand side to go back to your document management, and you've got your undo and redo. You've then got the tabs in the middle, and then you've got other functions on the right-hand side that, again, are higher level functions. The document title is just underneath the 3 dots in the middle, and I know it's really tiny. But I agree with that because I think the interface for an iPad needs to be slightly different than the interface for a desktop, where you've got much more scope to be working. But obviously they're not agreeing with this at the moment. So what you're looking at now is the original interface for the iPad version. Now, the 3 dots on the right-hand side, if I tap on that, we have the option to turn on the new look and feel. By default, that will be enabled. So the next time you go into Office and you open it, you'll be thinking, what have they done? But I turned it off so I can show you what it looked like before. I tap that to turn it on, and it says it will be updated after you reopen the file. So I will have to close that down, swipe up from the bottom to get rid of Word, swipe up again, and swipe that off the screen. And then tap the Word icon, and we'll start again with a new blank document. Oh, I don't like it. I really don't. They've saved us like 3 pixels of vertical space by putting the document name on the left-hand side. Where's me undo? Oh, no. They've moved that down. But now it's weird. The undo, which is between document 5 and the Calibri regular, is there in multiple ones of these. So they're moving. Depending on how many tools is in each group, they're moving. I don't like that. I think undo and redo need to be in the same place all the time. You need some predictability. I think it's ridiculous that it moves, but that's the first problem. Second problem is by taking the blue away, everything's just kind of hazy as to what belongs with what. Also, you have problems depending on the name of the file, which will be exacerbated when I show you on another device. But the name of the file on the left, if that's quite long, it's going to shove everything else out of the way or be truncated, depending on what happens with it. So that's the new interface. On a 12.9-inch iPad, I guess you're just going to have to learn to live with it. I personally think the undo and redo should be at a top level. But they're going to have problems by doing that. Because the bit in the middle, which is the home, insert, draw, layout, etc., the problem with that is, in this application, there's only 6 headings. But in PowerPoint, for example, there's a lot more headings. So it could be problematic. That's what it looks like in Word.
That's what they've done on the desktop.
I just don't like it.
Put the undo and redo on the home tab, so I've added them back to the quick access toolbar, and then they're available from everywhere.
The quick access toolbar saves my life because I have no idea where half the features are in the menu on PowerPoint. No idea whatsoever. I just put them on the quick access toolbar and I'm done. Right, let's have a look at PowerPoint, which is in there. Right, again, that's what it used to look like. And you can see that you've got a whole lot more grouping going on in the middle. And I just think, whatever the title of this file is, there'd be plenty of room to put it in the middle above the menu. But not when you go in here and you toggle on the new look and feel. And again, you have to come out and close it down totally and then go back into it. What are they thinking? Oh, you can just about get the menu items in across the top. But again, you've not got much space for the title. And again, you've got the undo and redo moving across the screen depending on where you are, which I don't like. Let me know, what do you think of this? I'm not 100% of a fan of this. Right, that's what it looks like on there. I will quickly show you Excel. Same principle. That's what it looked like before, but there is a new look and feel that it is telling me about, which I will come out of again, get rid of that, go into it. New shiny interface, don't like it. Oh no, I don't like it, but there you go. Now it also is in, if we go into the Office thing, this is all of the apps together. So if I open that up, we have that with an existing file. So it's opened an existing file, but this is in the Office app. The difference between the individual apps and the Office app is that the Office app has all the Office apps in it. And instead of approaching it on an app basis, so why am I opening Word? Because I want to open a Word file. The idea in here is that you don't have to think about it. All of your files are listed. And it doesn't matter whether it's Word, Excel or PowerPoint or Notes, as you can see there. You can open it from within here. I must admit, this is probably a millennial thing. I don't do that. That's not where my head's at. But if yours is, then that has also been updated. So that is the big iPad. Let's stop the mirroring on that and pick up a baby iPad. So hopefully this one's got battery. It's as old as the hills. I think this is a 2014 iPad. Things are a smidgen slower on it. Let's put that. Right, I'm going to get into here and start sharing the screen on this one. Okay. Don't disappear. Are you there? Here we go. Right. So this, I think, is a 2014 iPad. Same principle. So we'll start with Word. That's it with a file in the old view, which is just perfect. Just leave it alone. But we will go in and we will enable the new look and feel, which means we need to get rid of that. And then we need to go in there and open it up again. In the new shiny view. New shiny view. At least it's opening the file. Isn't it slow by comparison to the M1 iPad? Oh, you don't notice when you're just watching TV on it or, YouTube. Trying to do anything, though. Oh, I think it's time for this to retire, Mike. I need that one your mother's got. The shiny one. It's the cheapest iPad, but whoa, it's pretty good. To me, I don't know whether they're intending that the interface merges into the document, but that's what's happening. So I wasn't overly keen on that. And it gets worse, but that's it on there. Now, the reason I'm showing it you on this iPad is that this is the smallest iPad other than the Mini. So this is a 9.7-inch iPad. So when I go into this one, updated with latest changes, this is PowerPoint. I already had a problem in here that I do have to scroll fractionally to see the other options. But how much worse is that going to be? Because I'm going to take the name from the top and the name's going to appear on the left, and then I've lost the forward and back. Oh, the undo. So let's do it. Let's enable it and see how bad it is. So come out of there, get rid of that, run it again. And this, I think, is the worst. And unfortunately for me, this is the one that I would use the most. So it's opening this presentation from 2013. Here we go. And you can only see 6 menu options. So it looks like this was built for Word, because where it says animations, I've got to then move across, and it isn't even dragging very well either. There we go. There's 3 hidden. So you're swiping backwards and forwards like an idiot. And all of that seems to be to accommodate on the left-hand side the title of the file. Not a big fan of that at all. It's also just a bit on the pasty side. So I have no idea how bad this is on an iPad mini, but I think it's bad enough on this small iPad. Now, I know you probably say, well, I wouldn't make that many changes. I wouldn't go in here and then be playing around with the menus. But the fact is, you're supposed to be able to without all this scrolling and then tapping and hitting the wrong thing. So you saw there, I had the home thing enabled, but I'm trying to scroll across. That time I got it. But if I try and scroll back, sometimes it just activates the menu. And that's not what you want. You're just trying to scroll. But that is what they have done with it. Is that a hit or a miss for you? A hit or a miss? I will come out of that. No, I won't. I'll have to go in here and stop sharing it first, won't I? There we go. I'm not a huge fan. Having said that, when they added colour in back in the day, wasn't a huge fan of the colour either. I grew to love it. So who knows? Maybe I will learn to love this. But I'm sorry, at the moment, it's a case of no. Not in love with that at the moment. Right, okay. Let's go back in here and head off to Google Workspace update. Now, when I say Google Workspace, I mean the Google apps, but particularly the Docs app. Now, I've mentioned tonight network note-taking apps, which is a huge, big thing. Oh, if you're one of the cool kids, you got your network note-taking apps. And with those, I would say things like Notion and Craft and Roam, people are getting used to the fact of not looking at a blank screen. They want to sit down and start working and kind of be guided through it. And that's what Google have put in the background with a couple of other options in there. Peter says big miss. I agree. Not fond of it. Not fond of it. Right. So I have Google Drive. So let's see. First of all, one of the new features. So I am going to create a new document here. So up into new and just a Google Docs file. And it will be a blank one. Right, the first thing that I want us to look at is on the insert menu, we have the shiny new banner for watermark. Now you could always put a watermark in there, but it wasn't officially supported as a watermark. It was a case of getting it in the right place in the stacking order, and then trying to make it look like you want it to look. But now it's official. So you click on watermark and you get the option here to select an image. So I'm going to hit select image and I am going to go to my drive, and you'll see exactly what we saw in my drive. So what we're looking at there is exactly the same as that. It's just that I have it in a list. And I have this watermark down here. So I'm going to click on there and insert that. And it shows it over here, and it also shows it in the document. Now, it's very primitive. Don't get excited because it's pretty primitive. You'll notice at the moment that's 100%. So I made that the right size. If it wasn't the right size, you do have some options in here. So if you've got a smaller one, you need it to be 200, you can do that. But you're pretty limited in terms of what you can do. So I think it's a good idea to get it right, approximately the right size to start with. The only other option you've got in here is whether it's faded or not. Now, of course, you could fade it in the app that you're making it in. But the idea is that you can take something you've already got and use it as a watermark. So they have provided a faded option, but they've not given you any control over that. So it's either faded or it's not. It's one or the other. So if I had faded this in the source app, which was Affinity Designer, when it came in here, it would be doubly faded and I would have to have taken the fade off it. But it's hard to know how faded you want it. So it is very, very basic, but it's there as an option. So when you're finished with that, you just hit done. And in here, let's come down here. That will appear on all of the pages when you get to pages 2, 3, 4, etc. There it is. Right, so we've put a watermark in. Now, there was also the opportunity, with this being the equivalent of Word, so this is a document. Now, I think the only time I've used this in anger is twice. One, we used to do the show notes in it, didn't we?
We did.
Oh, never again. But we had no choice. We'd run out of everything else. We'd worked our way through every app that was possible, and that leaves us with Google Docs. So we tried it. I think we had used it for a good 20 shows or so, but our attitude still was never again. It's just like Word. You sit here and it's, well, what am I going to type? But who noticed when I came in here that it said something? And what it said is they've pulled together. They don't want to put people off who've used this app before for many, many years. They don't want to put those people off. But they also don't want to put people off who are opening up this document and they don't know what to do. They have no idea how to do anything in the document. So how other applications have fixed that is they've got like one single command from which you can do lots of different things. So for instance, if we go back into Craft and we go down to our Mad March here and we use the /, these are all the things we can do. We don't need to know what they are. There's no menu across the top. I mean, the menu that is here is fairly basic because it's what's it app? Oh, not Acorn. What's that word? Oh, it's a platform app that uses just
not Universal.
No, not Universal.
No.
It begins with an A. That. So these things that we've got at the top are not brilliant to start with, and there's no toolbar. You don't need it because you can go down here, and as you're going down, you can navigate with the arrow keys. So you can navigate forward and backwards through the entire commands. Now, people think this is shiny and new. This has been around for years. It was in Lotus 123. It's actually in Excel. How you can navigate through commands using just keys. But people are getting really, really used to this to the point that they're relying on it. So, what are Google to do? Because theirs is just a blank document and you've got to know what to do next. Apart from, it did say something when we logged in. So if I go to File and I go to New Document, we will actually see it. Type @ to insert. To insert what? It doesn't say. That's new. But if you do put an @ you get my Evernote email. Ned is our parish priest. So I mail him every week. But then you've got building blocks. You could put in meeting notes. These are the files that I've been using. So I've got my Kindle book tracker and I've got my MacBites Advent tracker. Then we've got lists. So I could put in checklists, numbered lists, bulleted lists. And then we've got media. So images, tables, charts and drawings. You could even put in dates. And they're taking it down to the nth degree here, aren't they? With headings. So if you didn't know where to put these headings or how to access the headings, and you can get to every feature that's in here, you can get to another way. It's literally just the point that it's available from one command. The difference in Google Workspace is that it's available from the @ and not the /. So if I wanted to start the document with the heading 1, it's as simple as choosing it and putting in heading 1. And then, although it doesn't prompt me anymore, so at this stage it doesn't happen on every line, but I can use the @ again and then put other things in here. You see 2 things from my calendar. I don't know why I've got 2 of them at the same time, but never mind. I've also got page components. So things like page numbers and page counts. These are the difficult things for people. How to put a break in. I've even got the option for the watermark in there. So you could actually use this command to build up an entire document from just using the @. So if we put in here, introduction to the document, and then we wanted to put in a heading 2, that didn't filter well for a heading, did it? But there's the heading 2. So let's pop heading 2 in there. How's the girl? Is she demanding?
Been to the toilet.
I think she's just got daddy on a string. Right, more information about the document. And then maybe we want a horizontal line. That was also available in here. So it's a whole different way of putting a document together, really. It's like assembling a document rather than actually sitting there and writing it and knowing all the commands. So as long as you know that @ command, you can put whatever you like in here. So let's get another document. So at the moment I'm working with untitled documents, which is not the best idea, is it? Let's put that report. There we go. We'll have that as demo report. Right. And I'll get myself another document. So I'm going to make another document. And in here, what I'm going to put is like a sign off. So something like Elaine, and then the whole thing from MacBites. Probably the best way to get this is copy and paste it, but never mind. So I think you can get me at that now. I think we rewired it. Right, so I've got a signature, basically. So let's rename that as MacBites Signature Elaine. Right, and then go back to the demo report. So in here at... Why are you not? There we go, that's better. Right. If I were to put one of these things in, like the Advent thing, all it's going to do is put a link into that file, which is actually nice. It shows you the file on a hover. There's no changes since I viewed it because I don't think we've opened it since Christmas morning. But it's a quick way to get to that file. You could click it and it would take you to that file. So I'll put in some information. Let's put the @ back in. And let's go into here. And now this says building blocks and it says meeting notes. So if we put that in, what it's going to do in there is show me all the things. So if I wanted to put some meeting notes in for that, this is a podcasting summit that's on this week. That's a link to the calendar event I'm attending, and there's the notes and action items. So I've actually put that in here now. This is really nicely done, isn't it? So if I put @ and I'm looking for files. This is the bit I don't get because it's only offering me certain things, and I want the signature I've just created. And it's not doing that, but that's what I'd like to do with it. Did I put @ MacBites? But I've got a million MacBites files. MacBites signature. No, it's not having it. It might need to update its cache or something, but that's the idea, that you can create a single document from bits of other documents. Let me know in the chat if you use Roam, because that's pretty much what Roam does with a block reference. So the problem for Google is that they can't really just turn it into Roam or turn it into Craft, because people would go mental who've been using it for years. But they're certainly making strides to take it that way if you choose. If you learn this @ command and this @ command is useful for you, then absolutely it's heading in that direction. So would you use this? Let me know.
Was it Catalyst?
That's it. It was Catalyst app. Why did I think it began with an A? Yes, it was a Catalyst app. So it doesn't have a full menu on it. Shall I try the insert chart thing? Because that went so well last time, didn't it? I can insert it from a sheet, but let's put a pie chart in. Oh, there we go.
Carol uses Roam.
Roam's fabulous. Roam really is fabulous.
Even I've started using Roam.
Yes, Mike's got little bitty questions,
Yes.
haven't you?
Baby
today?
Roam.
Baby Roam.
Baby Roam.
Well, yes, but you did do half a morning on interstitial journaling.
Yeah, then my brain was blown.
Poor Mike. Oh. Similar to DOS prompts. I'm not sure what that bit was about.
No, I missed
It's
that
all
bit.
so sophisticated. I think it's handy. I certainly think it's useful. Because you do get some really shocking documents from people. And this way it's hard to go wrong. You've got over here, by using proper headings, it's building up a document structure. You've got things that are linked properly. Also, it makes it very simple to make changes. And so one thing I was doing, so in here, let's say we need a better heading than that. At the moment, I'm in edit mode. And we know I'm in edit mode because up here, it says editing mode. But you also have just viewing mode, which means you're not going to make any changes. All the links are alive and you can go and look at them, but you're not going to make any changes. You also have here, and I don't want to present it to a meeting, this is what I want. So editing is where you're creating the document, but you also have a different mode. So if I'm in here and I'm thinking, that needs changing, I've got two options. I can actually add a comment to it. So need to update heading. And click OK, and that's a comment. So that's how Mike and I work when we're putting comments on the show notes. We put comments in the side. But there's also another entire mode. So if we go down to here and say in there, we need to update the heading. You've got this option, which is a comment, but this one is an edit. So if you click on there, it says you're suggesting. So if I was to put in there more information, you can see that displays itself very differently. So what I've done is make a suggestion. I click away from that now. This shows in here and it says, you're suggesting that we replace heading 2 with more information. So this one would need me to actually go in and manually do something. This one is far easier because if I think, yep, that's right, all I'd need to do is hit tick and it gets updated and I don't have to worry about it. So it's a great way to make sure that you don't break the formatting or anything. And they consider that mode, that suggesting mode, is so important that there is actually an entire mode for suggesting. So now we're in suggesting mode and I can go through and make any kind of suggestions anywhere in the document. So if I change that to say file, you can see it's got what was there, it's got what I'm suggesting, and if we want to keep that, we can. If I think, no, it should be document, then I can just hit the cross and the suggestion goes away and it returns me to where I was before. I don't have much need to make documents like this, because I think of this as like, I know people share them and stuff, but we really don't, do we? We're more likely to be sharing a PDF or something. But it is that good when it comes to editing now that I would use this before I would use Word. So one of the things I did was I made an auto transcript of a short piece, probably about 20 minutes. And then I came in here with it and I tidied it up. And I could put comments on it, I could put links with it, and I actually use that file. So I think the improvements, they work for me because I'm working with Notion and Craft and Roam, and I would find it very limiting to come in here and it just be like basically ink on a page. I can't do anything else with it. And yes, I can put links into documents, but not as pretty as that. It would be more difficult to do that. I'd have to go and find the link and then I'd have to paste it in and say this is a link. So I think they really are heading in the right direction with that. I will try and dig out one of the files that I've actually used in that way for next week. So remind me, Mike, remind me. Right, so who uses this? And were you aware of these changes? Do you work with other people and do the suggesting and things? We don't really do that, do we? But I'm wondering if we should. Because for something like suggestions, rather than put comments in Notion and then have to go and edit it, it might actually make more sense. Because you can copy and paste straight out of here and into an email because it's Google and it supports it. Mike's getting twitchy now because he's thinking, oh no, now I'm going to have to learn something else. Oh no. Right, okay then, let's move on from that. So let's get that out of the way. And back into there. Oh, freebies. This is a good one. You're going to like this. Right, I was doing my Office-y stuff, my Windows work, and I found that there is a font available from Microsoft. It's called Segoe Fluent Icons. It is installed by default in Windows 11, which is grand. It is not available in Windows 10 or for the Mac, unless you download it manually. So that's the link you need to download it. It will download a zip file and in it you will find the font. And it is icons, as you can see. The interesting thing was how you are actually supposed to insert these icons. And you'll see there's some hex codes there, E756, E75F. Each one of the shapes that is in the font has a code number. So I'm looking at this thinking, is this some kind of weird Bletchley Park thing going on? Can't I just install the font and actually use it, basically? Because they're making it available for Windows 10 and Mac users, so why not? But in essence, the way it works, this is a really old trick, isn't it? It goes back to you and I using Windows in the early 90s. It's a trick where you put in a code number. So if you want that music one, E90B, and then you use the Alt or Option key and X in Word to activate it. So, I very seldom have Windows open, but I know a man who does. So what I'm going to do is switch over to Mike, and he is going to show you how that actually works. So away you go, Mike.
So what I did is I typed in that code there, which was given to me by you across the office.
Do you know what I was reminded of while we were doing it?
What?
Do you remember I Spy books?
Oh, yeah.
They were like little pocket books, and they gave you things to do outside with nature, and it was like, here's the secret code number. Yeah, it was like an I Spy book.
Anyway, I typed the code in, and then I made sure that I applied the Segoe Fluent icons font, and then with that code highlighted, I press Alt and X, and look, I get a fingerprint. I've obviously made the font bigger because otherwise you wouldn't really be able to see it. So then I'll do the same thing with that, F463. It's going to be a total surprise to me because I know you said which of those icons
I could have picked
you want.
rude ones.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
So Alt and X, that's not working. Should we try it again?
You've already broken it.
No, I've not. I just need to highlight. There we go. That's the squiggle.
You picked the squiggle.
I did. I picked them all, but I can't remember what I picked, is what I'm saying.
That's why it's like an I Spy book.
Yeah, F6B8, Alt and X, or Option and X, and it's the love heart with a square around it.
That's a love note.
Is that a love note?
Mike, brush up. It's Valentine's Day next month.
Oh, yeah. I presume I can change the colour. Yeah, there we go. And change the colour of that. Yeah. There we go.
Now, your problem is then, if you're on the Mac and you're trying to do that, obviously. But there is an option. There is a workaround. So, why are you not working? Come on, work around. Right. If we try that in Word on here, so do I have document 1? Are you going to open for me? You're not document 1. You're actually a real document. Right, let's get a new document. There we go. Right, irrespective of if I choose the font, and obviously that's the first thing you need to do. So it was the Fluent Icons font. And if I just type in here, I'm getting a rather nice looking font, but I'm not getting any of the characters. So, do you want to shout out one of those codes, Mike? Something.
I'll have to undo so I can see them now. F463.
Right, so if I grab hold of that and I do exactly the same, I get a squiggle. And I thought, oh, maybe on the Mac it's different. No, it's just being awkward. So it doesn't work. So I'm thinking, well, how do I make these work on a Mac then? Crying out loud, need these to work on a Mac. So let's make sure that's correct. But there is a good way to cheat on the Mac, and it actually makes it a whole lot easier. So we have something on the Mac called Font Book. And I have selected the right font, so I could choose any of these, but there it is. So if I choose like this print one, you see the actual characters. By default, that's what it looks like. And so I could copy one of these or one of these. At least here I can see everything. But if I go to my icons, I only see these. But I can grab hold of them and copy and go into here and paste. And they are individual styled icons from there. But it's only a few of them. So you see, I don't have the heart one and I don't have the squiggle. I don't have anything that Mike had. So if we go back to the font book, make sure you've got it selected in the all fonts column. And then with the buttons at the top, go into preview mode. And then you will see every icon that is part of this font. Everyone. Now, where's something interesting? There was a battery one I quite like a half-charged battery. But there's all sorts in here, and you get to see them all. So there's a broken heart. No, we better not use that. Might tempt fate, Mike. What should we use? How about this ship here? There we go. All you need to do is select it. So I've just clicked on it. Just click on any of these. Copy and go into your document and paste. It's fabulous. So because they're icons, I don't think it's a problem that's easy than knowing all the codes and typing them in. There wasn't even a list of codes, so I'm not actually sure on Windows how you're supposed to know what the code is. I think it's easier to use the font book. So font book is built into macOS. If you're on Windows, you can install the font, you can use it in the way that Microsoft intended. But on a Mac, they're not helpful. They don't give us a way to work the way that you work on Windows. But because you have Font Book, you can probably work in a better way, which is just look through all of these. Do you remember when I wanted a circle with a cross in it? That's exactly what I wanted, and that one's got one. Here's the battery ones, that you could grab one of these and say it's charging, like that one. Pop that in there, and as Mike said, you can then change the colour of these, so we could have that as a green. Now the battery's charging. So just something for you to use. You're not limited to using them in Word. You can use them in all of the Affinity apps. Any way you want to use them, you can use it. I think it's just easier to work with a font book than it is to work with Word. So let's come out of there, and let's come out of there. Right, are we going back to you, Mike?
Yes, we are.
Let me just show you a couple more of these. Let's move that on. So that's where you can get it from. The only thing that I found that gave you any indication of any more numbers for icons was that. So if you want to grab that. But the best way if you're on a Mac is to use the font book. Far, far easier to just do that. Right, Mike is working with dates, part 2, aren't you?
I am.
Is your desktop all tidy and stuff?
I'm not showing my desktop. Show me Excel spreadsheet.
There you go.
Shall I start?
Yes.
Okay, dates part 2. I'm going to do a recap of one of the demos I did at the end of last week, and then I'm going to go into some new stuff. It's a kind of variation on a theme, actually, with a MacBites theme as well, to bring back some memories, as you'll see shortly. Okay, I need to get a list of dates. So I'm going to start with a simple example. I need a list of dates 1 day apart, starting with the 23rd of January this year. So in A2, I'll type 23/1/2022 and then select the cell, point to the bottom corner, get the little black cross and drag down as far as I need to go. Problem I've got is that I do know how far I need to go, but I've got to keep my eye on the little pop-up post-it note that tells me where we're up to. So if I wanted to stop, let's say on the 6th of February, then that's how I'd stop. So it's generated sequential dates. Now I need a list of dates that are 7 days apart. And I'll start this on the 23rd of January. 23rd of January, I just picked as a random date. So I'll put the 23rd of January 2022. And then I will put the 30th of January 2022. And as long as I select both cells and point to the bottom corner and drag down, then I will get a continuation of that pattern. So it is every Sunday, actually, starting from this weekend and going through to the beginning of May. And that's just random because I just happened to stop on row 16. Obviously, if you want to change the format of those cells, you can do. So I could make those display as long date and make those display as long date. So these ones here are just fixed dates. So if I was to change the value in A2, then it would have no effect on the rest of them. But these in column B, these also contain static dates. So again, if I was to change the starting date, it would have no effect on the other dates, because there's no formulas. This was just a way of generating a list of dates. But you can do it with formulas. So I could go to let's say to C2, or I could wipe these out. Actually, I'll wipe these out and I will overtype those. So again, in column B, I will put the 23rd of the 1st, 2022. And it remembers the fact that I had applied long date formatting to that cell, and then do a normal formula, which will be B2 plus 7. You can put any number you like there. It just so happens that in this case, I want to get a set of dates 7 days apart. And then I just copy the formula. So the difference here is these are formulas. So I could go back and I could change the starting date to, say, the 30th of January 2022. And now it's updated all those cells because these cells contain formulas. The next way to do it, and I did show you this way at the end of last week, but I kind of rushed it and didn't explain it fully, is using the sequence function. The sequence function is only available to Microsoft 365 subscribers. It's one of the relatively new dynamic array functions that Microsoft made available in early 2020. Now, for the sequence function to work, I need to know how many items, in this case dates, items a date, so how many items I need. What I want to do is I want to list 15 weeks worth of dates 7 days apart. And again, I'll start on the 23rd of January. You don't have to, but that's what I'm going to do. So in C2, I'm going to use the sequence function equals sequence. I'm going to start with the first parameter, 15. The reason I've put 15 in there is because the first parameter refers to the number of rows. So it's going to generate 15 items, 1 per row. So it's going to generate a list 15 rows deep. I want it to generate this list of dates just in one column. So the second parameter is 1 because that's the number of columns. The third parameter is the start number. Now, it doesn't have to be a number. It could be a date or it could be a number. So if you're generating a sequence of dates, then you need to tell it what date to start with. But you can't actually type in the date. You can't type 23rd of January 2022. You've got to build the date up, because typing it in as 23rd of the 1st 2022, even though it's a format that Excel recognizes, the sequence function doesn't recognize it. So I need to use the date function where I input a year, a month and a day, and that will generate a date. So 2022, 1, 23. So that will generate my date, comma, and the step, the fourth parameter, is the step. So in this case, because I want it to go up in steps of 7 days, I put a 7. Close the brackets and enter. Now, what I then need to do, because it has generated the dates, but it's generated them and displayed them as numbers. And I explained that last week, that dates behind the scenes are just numbers, but I can change the format of those so they do display as dates and just widen the columns. Now, when you click into a cell that uses the sequence function or any of the other dynamic array functions, you'll notice that the first formula is editable, but the other formulas are grayed out. And there's also a blue border appearing around the range, and that's what indicates that it's dynamic. So if I go and change this 15 to 18, it's now given us 18 values. Yes, I know I will have to format those as long date. And if I changed the 18 to 12, it's now giving us 12 values. And that's the dynamic aspect of dynamic arrays. So that's 3 ways that you can generate a list of dates in Excel. I am going to go on and show you a couple more examples of using the sequence function, but I'm just going to check if there are any questions. I agree with you, Renee. You find it confusing that different functions are not available in all Excel versions. Well, the good news is that the sequence function is available on Excel for Windows, Excel for Mac. I think it's available on the iPad, and it's certainly available on Excel for the web, which is actually getting better by the day, Excel for the web. It's also, I think, available in Excel 2021. So if you do buy the standalone version of the latest Excel, I think it's available in that. But the reason Microsoft are doing it is for subscription purposes, the good old S word that we all love. So you pay your money, your 365 subscription, and the carrot that they dangle in front of you is to give you functionality that is only available to 365 subscribers. Anyway, let me show you a couple more examples of using the sequence function. So that was what I introduced to you last week, but this is now taking it a little stage further. Okay, now in the last example, I actually embedded the start date and the number of dates directly into the formula. In this example, I need the flexibility to specify how many dates are required and to choose the starting date. So what I've done is I've put how many items are required in F1 and the starting date in F2. And a bonus point for anybody who knows what that starting date is. Some people on here will know what the starting date is. So if you do know, stick it in the chat. Anyway, let's go on and go to A2. And in A2, remember, I want a list of dates starting with the 16th of March 2020, and I want 1,000 of them. That was being very, what's the word? I can't think of the word.
Insane
and optimistic. Yeah. Right. Has anybody guessed what it is yet?
Oh, should do.
Should do, yes. Right. So anyway, equals sequence. It does help if I type into the right window, doesn't it? Equals sequence. And this time, because I want 1,000 dates, each one on a separate row, I'm going to choose F1 and then put a comma. And then, lost myself here. I'm going to put a 1 because I want it to all be in one column. And the start is going to be the 16th of March 2020. Have I lost that? Oh, hang on. No, there it is. Need an extra comma. Right, 16th of March 2020. And I want to go up in steps of 1. And then format all of those as long date because it's generated the number. If you remember what I said to you as well last week, I said that you need to know the correlation between the numbers, the serial numbers and the dates. Otherwise, when you do something like this and it generates numbers, you're thinking, why is it doing that? Okay, so the 16th of March 2020 and the 10th of December 2022 is the 1,000th entry. And nobody's actually put anything in the chat. Let's just say that we didn't get to the 1,000th day.
No, but we did get halfway there.
We did, exactly. Right, so let's go back to the top of this list here. Right, so let's say I wanted to know the date of show 500. I could do an X lookup in there to work that out. What I'd actually need though is I need the list of the show numbers. If anyone hasn't twigged, it is the marooned dates, the 16th of March 2020. So if I do equals sequence in here, do that again, equals sequence, And again, I want 1,000 or whatever numbers in that cell. I want one column of numbers. I want to start at 1 and go up in steps of 1. And that generates 1 to 1,000. So if I wanted to know what date show 500 was, I could do an XLOOKUP, looking down this column here for 500 or for whatever's in that cell, and then looking on here. And without even doing an XLOOKUP, it was the 28th of July.
I remember it was the end of July.
Yes, the 28th of July. Okay. Right. So, now let me do one more demo. What I want to do here is I want to do a similar thing, but I don't actually want to generate the list. So I want to be able to find out what date a particular show was. So whether it's show 500 or whether it's show 2 or whether it's show 498 or whether it's show 3. Okay, so I want to get the date of a particular show number, but I don't want to generate the list of 500 dates or 1,000 dates or whatever it is in the spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to combine two functions together. One of them is going to be the small function and the other is the sequence function. The small function will return the smallest or second smallest or third smallest or 100 smallest or 500 smallest or whatever value in a range. So if we look at the example I've got here, if I wanted to know what the third lowest number was, I've not used a function to do this, I've just highlighted it in red, but 8 is the third lowest number, 6, 7, 8. And the second earliest date is the 12th of August 2020. The earliest date is the 12th of April 1992, and the second earliest date is the 12th of August. So if I was wanting to calculate those, I can use the small function to do it. So what I'll do is I'll go to B3 and I'll put equals small open brackets. And the small function takes two parameters. The first parameter is the range containing the values. But instead of me specifying a range of cells with the dates in, which I haven't got, I will use the sequence function to generate that date list. But because the sequence function is inside the small function, it won't generate the list and make it visible in the spreadsheet. It'll generate it behind the scenes. So if I want to generate 500 rows by one column of sequential numbers or sequential dates, then I will put sequence, the number of rows I want, which is going to be 500, the number of columns I want, which is going to be 1. I'm going to start at that date there, and I'm going to go up in steps of 1. And that's the sequence function, but then I want a comma, and now I'm back to defining the second parameter of the small function, which is the actual number of the show that I'm looking at, which in this case is also going to come from B2. And then format that as long date, and we have the 28th of July 2021. So there we go. That is different ways that you can generate a list of dates. Do we have any questions?
I can't see the screen, or I'd be able to help you with that.
Okay.
Where are we at? Oh, there we are.
I don't see any questions. So
I'm liking Renee saying, don't you know marooned? We know Renee knows marooned.
Yes.
Right, okay. Shall I get rid of that lot? Right, let me get into there. Right, jolly good. And if I press a button, oh, nearly. There we go. Right, Affinity Designer, styles, dials, and much more. Who knows about styles in Affinity Designer? Let me know in the chat. Still going to subject you to the basics, but even so, there will be some that do not know about styles and dials. I'm using dials to show you all about styles. That's the plan anyway. So let me tap a few things here and make magic happen. Go on, you know you want to move, you do. Right. I bet you, if I press that button, weirdness will happen. Oh, no it didn't. Good grief. Right, so, designer. There's designer. Right, what are styles? Well, to show you styles, I'm going to need a blank file. Instead of having to create layer effects from scratch to make something look a certain way, you can use the styles panel to apply a pre-designed style to any layer content. And that can be a combination of layer effects, gradient fills, anything you like. So, let's have a look in here. No, I thought somebody had asked a question, but no, they haven't. Right, okay. So, we mustn't get confused with the different types of styles. Not only do we have different types of styles within Affinity Designer, we also have across the Affinity apps a whole range of different style types. So we've got object styles, we've got text styles, there's all kinds of styles going on. What we're talking about is object styles. So if I get myself a circle and I show you that, now my interface at the moment, because this was only installed this week, we won't talk about the reason why that was necessary. But I don't have anything in here beyond the basics. So when I go to the styles panel, I have in here a range of default styles. Now, if you can't see that, if you've changed your interface, you'll need to go to View and Studio. And within there, you will find styles. You will also find text styles. That's not the same thing. Leave it alone. That is for when we are formatting text and is nothing to do with what we're doing today in terms of plain shape styles. That's to do with text. What I would suggest is when you install Affinity, that's the default interface. So what I did is I went down to Studio Presets and I saved a preset called Clean Install. So if I need to work, I will create other presets to work with. But when I do a demo or a video, I'll turn it back to the clean install so it will look like everybody else's looks. So if it's too late for that, let me know and I can probably share a preset with you. Right, but that's what we've got. So we have a shape. And you can apply to that shape any of these styles in here and it will totally change how it looks. It's nothing that you can't do yourself. It's just a quick way to do it. So it is, as the name implies, a style like you would have in Word to change text to bold, italic, underline and red. It's a recipe of content to apply to it, and it's the reason that you do it this way is to save you time. So if I wanted this to look like metal, I can click on the metal option. And again, all it's doing is applying effects to it and colours to it, but it's doing it in one go. So it's much, much faster. Patricia says, would I have been able to save the clean install? Needs to be done. Yes, you need to do that. I must admit, I didn't do it last time, but that only gave me grief as I had to try and turn it back to what it was before. So now it's there. So these are the ones that comes with it. All of this in the default option, you only have one default option there, is what comes with it. And as you can see, as you apply it, 1985 called and wanted its ping back. So there's a whole range of styles that you have available in there. The fascinating news and the good news is that you can create your own. So if you've gone through and you've formatted something in a certain way, then we might come back to that neon one. I'm liking that. Then you can save it And by saving it as a style, you can share it with other people, you can back it up, you can transfer it between machines, and you can use it in multiple artwork. So there's a huge range of reasons that it's worthwhile doing this. Carol says, how do I save the clean install? All I did was go up to View, and I went down to Studio Presets, and I said add a preset. And then I gave it a name and I called it clean install, and that was it. If I wanted to save this one as like my demo, I just put a name in and click OK. When I go back to View and down to Studio Presets, I've got my clean install and I've got my demo. And if you want to manage these, you go in and manage them. You can rename them, you can apply them, or you can delete them. So with this demo one, I'm going to delete the demo one. And I will show you by going up to View and Studio and Assets over on this side here. I've changed the view. So if I go back to View, Studio Presets, add a preset called Demo again. And what I'm able to do at that point is go back to these Studio Presets and switch between them. So the panels and the placement and everything is there. And then switch to my demo when I need to switch to my demo. So Studio Presets are really, really useful. They were only added about a year ago, but they are incredibly useful rather than having to manually reset everything. Okay. Right. Actually, I don't need the assets at the minute. I will do down the line. So we'll lose those for the moment. Let's go back to our clean install. Right. So we're talking about the styles that we have over here, and this is what is shipped with it. So it's a bit of a mixed collection. It's pretty random. But you can create your own. So we've got a couple of options with these. So I have a file that I'm going to open, which is this one here. And this has some styles already applied, but they're not styles. They are just formats that I have applied to this. So I've got 3 of them. And I want to work with these and apply them in other places. So I've got my silver one, and I've got 2 different shades of gold there. And in here, I've got just plain shapes. So these shapes were just drawn in here, drag one on, plain shape, and it happened to have like a grey fill. These are just, they're nothing special. They're just basic shapes. Now, what I'm interested in is I want these to look like the one above. And they're not included as a style yet. So let's have a look. Why does it look like that? So why is this one like a silver controller for an audio interface or something? It's not one of these. So what's making that layer look like it looks? And there's 2 real separate things that are making it look that way. You'll see that it's got an effect applied to it. It has layer effects. So if we open up the layer effects, we can see which layer effects this has got applied. It has an outer shadow, which is making it stand up slightly off the background. It also has the bevel and emboss. So there's 2 different layer effects that are applied to that. By far the biggest difference, so if we turn these off so you can see the impact, it's really the edge that these are applying to. That is nothing to do with what's making it look silver on the inside. That is to do with the fill and the stroke that is applied to this. So if I open up the fill, it's got a multi-port gradient to it. And that's what's giving it that look. If I were to go in here and choose one of these and make it something really that's not great, is it? Come on, back we go. I choose one of these and change the colour of it. You can see which bit that's actually applying to. Obviously, that's not what we want to do with it. But it's the gradient and the stroke fill, so the fill and stroke, that's making it look like that. Now, we want the one below to look the same. Now, it's easy in this case because it would literally be, hold the Option key, drag, now it looks the same. I can delete this one. But what if it was a different shape? So while it's a circle, simple. But the principles still apply. So if I pull that out and draw it, you can see, well, that looks like that now. That's because that was what was selected at the time. But we've got this circle and we want this circle to look like the one above. And by far the easiest way is just to copy it. So I am copying it. Edit, copy. And I've copied that shape. Then I go down to the bottom shape, and obviously I don't want to paste. I mean, it would work in this circumstance, but if it's a different shape, then it wouldn't. What you can do is go to Edit and paste just the style or just the effect. So we'll paste the style on it, we get everything. And you just need to do the same with the other. So Edit, copy. You are copying the whole thing, but when you paste, you're pasting just the style. And that is one way to transfer settings that you've got onto new shapes by just pasting the style. Right.
Dee says the gradient looks complex. Can you open up the gradient tool so she can see what the line looks like to get that effect?
It's not as tricky as it looks, seriously. So if we go there, you've got two ways to see the gradient. You can go up there and see that as a gradient, those are the points in the gradient, but it's a conical gradient. So if I get the gradient tool down here, you can see it's actually circular. And what we've got is a starting point and an end point, and they are the same colour. And then we have a point as we go through, so it's grey, white, grey, white, grey, white, equal. And that's what gives it that look. If we have a look at the gold one, we've got very light highlights here and then more muted highlights, but it's exactly the same principle. So if we wanted one, let's get this one, and we wanted it something else. So we grab this bit here. What colour could we have? How about something that's mouldy? Right, what I would do with it in that case is we'll make it that kind of green there. Right, and I'd open this up, which will open up my colour picker, and that will give me over here my hex code, which I copy. And then all I need to do is go into that and paste that hex code. So I'm actually going to leave this on the screen as I move around, and I'm selecting every other one and I'm pasting that in. So every other one, the darker one at the moment. Let's paste that in, and that one. And I think we only need to paste one more in, which is the end one. And now we've got the greens.
Dee's impressed with conical.
Right, and then this one here, which is now looking really bad. We need a different kind of green, don't we? A much darker green like that. So it's like a highlight. Copy that one. And then all I'm going to do is go through and do exactly the same, but with the alternate colour wells on there, like that. So we've got a kind of green one. So it was gold in its day, but it went mouldy. There we go. So very straightforward. We will be coming back to gradients again, but now we've got a green one as well. Right. So hopefully that answers that question. Dee likes that. Likes that a lot. Okay. Right. So it's that simple, but at this stage, if I wanted these in another file, or I wanted to be able to give them to you to work with, then they're not really in a great shareable format. They're actually in the artwork. That's not great. So what we could do with doing is having these styles available to work with in multiple files. And here's how we do that. In the styles panel, I'm going to create a completely new set. So if we go up there, we can add a new category. And that gives us a blank canvas to work with, helpfully called unnamed. So let's name it. Let's go up there and rename this category. So I'm going to rename that as, should we call it MacBites After Hours? There we go. Right. In here, though, nothing there at the moment. So let's select the silver one. And in here, you've got options. So we've done the add new category. We've renamed it. We don't want to delete it yet. That wouldn't work at all, would it? What we do need is to add the style from the selection. And that will add it. And in there, it's style 1. So what we can do on that is rename that style. So we'll have that as silver. And we will rinse and repeat for the others. So add style from selection, get the other gold one, add style from selection, get the green one just because we can, and add the style from the selection. Right, we'll have this one named as a light gold. In fact, what we could do is have it as gold light and then gold dark, and then if we were deciding we were going to organise them, they would appear correctly. So let's have gold dark and green. So in there, rename style, and that one is green. Right, that gives us this benefit. I go in and I make a new file, and I add a whole range of shapes. These will look terrible, but you know what? Let's do it anyway. A whole range of shapes. Oh yes, you've got to have the cog tool. And we've got 4 different colours, so let's have 4 different ones of these. And now I could do it the slow way, which is going in here and picking one and going to edit copy and then finding the file and going back into it and selecting one and then say paste the style. I could do it the long way. Let's not do that. All you need to do once it's in the styles panel is select it and apply. Select the second one and apply, select the third one and apply, and the last one and apply. So there's huge benefits to having it in this styles panel. Right, you can also from here then export those styles. And obviously, as soon as you have added something to this, that's exactly what you need to do. Because it's only going to be, we'll put this on the desktop for easy copying, but it's only going to be available on this machine until you can take a copy of it. So we'll call this MacBites After Hours. That would have been handy if it's capital H, and it will appear on the desktop there. And what you've got there is your AF styles. AF styles. And what you can do with that is then import it. So if I go back into here and I do a ludicrous thing, like totally deleting it, now I've only got the default available, but I have already exported it. Thus, I can import it. And as long as I am pointing to the desktop, I can open that and in it comes. So 1, it's a backup, and 2, it enables me to share it with you guys. So we could do the cloud app thing, couldn't we? Let's do the cloud app thing. Oh, no. Oh, have you ever had it like this, Mike? You do one thing. You were going to let me in then. Why did it say sign out? Sign in with email. Let's do that. Right. Come on, I'm trying to share this. Please click open cloud when it... Yeah, it's just working though, so you're lying to me. Right, let's grab that and stick that up there. And then it'll tell me. Only I won't see it because I've got my notifications off. Oh, where's... There we go. And let me paste that in. Right. You should be able to get that now. Let me know if you can get that. So it's great for sharing, even more important to back it up. So this is the styles that we're going to be working with. We will be looking at some gradients that are very interesting. Right, so let's get rid of that file. In fact, no, let's just go get the next file that we want. Right, let's put this into practice. So I've got here 2 very nice switches. One is in the on position with the green rim round it, and this one is in the off position. They did not start life like that. You could do this totally from scratch. It is actually only 3 shapes. It's 2 circles, and you could even do it as 1 circle, but I did it as 2 circles and a rounded rectangle. But don't reinvent the wheel. So before you start drawing it all out, don't reinvent the wheel. Let's just get a blank piece here to work with. And I will show you what we got on there. Everything's separate. So I'm going to group those just so they're out of our way. Right. Remember that we had under View, Studio, Assets, and the assets appear over here. I only have what's shipping with this because I backed all my assets up and I haven't reinstalled them yet. So what ships with the very latest version of Affinity Designer is just one thing. It is the sample assets for iOS 12. And there's hundreds of things in here. If I start folding them up, you can see how many categories there are for a start. And each one of these categories has got thousands of things in them. So there's a whole range of things in here. But there is something that looks rather similar to what we've already got. So if I drag that out, yeah, that looks reasonable, doesn't it? But it doesn't look like what we've got here. But that was what I did. I created it from that. So I dragged it in as an asset from this panel over here. We then really don't need to see that again, but just to show you, there was actually two options. That's what you've got. So even if you're not designing for iOS, you've no intention of designing for iOS, these can still be useful to you as starting points. So let's get rid of that. So View, Studio, we don't need to see the assets anymore. And we've got these two things here, but we want them to look like on the right. So the first thing you need to do is actually look at what you've got here. So in there, it's toggle on. You've got an ellipse on it and you've got a curve. And that's it. You've only got two things on it. So how can we make that look like this without too much hard work? Well, we've already got the styles. So that bit there would be really simple to just make silver. Now it's silver. I chose to add another circle for the colour. There are many different ways to do it. That was the way that I chose. So I added onto this a bit of a circle that was a bit bigger. Now I just left it that I moved it up and down the layers. So I would need that behind that one. You can see it's a little bit darker behind it. All I then did was make that green. Now I'm going to undo it because at least we can see it at the moment. You can't see it too well when it's on green. But this bit at the back, I don't really want it to be green. I want it to be quite dark and I need it to have some kind of effect on to give a kind of depth to it. So I definitely don't need that colour, maybe a bit darker. How I'm going to do it, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to drag that down to there and pick that colour and we'll just put that in as the background. But I've got the whole thing selected, which is why it's doing that. So now we've got a background in it. Now I can make that green and you will actually see it. At that point, I've got a kind of, I've got the style on the top, which is what I want, but the background isn't looking great unless it's got some kind of depth to it. So I need this background curve and I need to go to the effects on it in there. And what I did with this one, if we get into there and we open that up, we can see I have that in it and I had an inner shadow in it and that was all. So it wasn't even that difficult to do. It's just one effect I'm putting on it, which is the inner shadow there. Now, initially, when you put that inner shadow on, you put a tick in it. It doesn't seem to make that much change. But that's because you need to adjust these three sliders for radius, offset and intensity. So if I take this one up quite considerably, you can start to see it come into play. And if you want a different effect, you could leave it like that, or you could take it back here so it's more subtle. Then as you do the offset, you can see it coming in from the top left. So it depends on how much you want that. How detailed you want it, how far in do you want it. And the intensity just makes it much, much darker. So you can actually have that set to 0, unless you want it to be darker. And then it really is just a matter of adjusting these. I mean, obviously, it starts to go silly if you do things like this, but you know, that might be the look you're looking for. So let's get it back to something reasonable like that. And there you go. So it's really straightforward. You might think looking at it, oh no, I have to do this and I have to do that. It's 3 items. And it's only 3 items because I didn't put the green on the edge as part of the silver bit. I wanted it separate. Now, there was an effect that we had in the styles, not our styles, the default ones, called neon. So if I grab the whole of this, so these 3 bits here, and move them down, and we will focus in on working with these now. If I were to go to the green bit in there, and it's far easier in here to do that. Where's mine? Come on, where have you gone? There we are. You are that one. I could apply the style from here, neon, and you would have a kind of neon glow on it. So you could use some of the ones that are already in there. Right. Peter says, not something I've tried. Saw somewhere would be easier to add the green circle to the button. It'd be easier done by adding a stroke. True, it might be. I chose to do it separately. I work a lot with SVGs, and SVGs get quite confused when you've got strokes on it. It's to do with the scaling of it. It sometimes just looks terrible. So I need to make sure that I've done it as simply as possible for the SVG to work. So that's why I did it that way. But, you know, any way that suits you, as long as it gives you the result you want, no problem at all. Just do it whichever way suits you. Right, so that was how I took something from the assets panel and just made a few tweaks, and you're talking very different. So let's go back to that assets panel. And we'll drag that on, and you can see they started life the same, but they look very different now. Another thing that I did while I was in here was that I've been saying for a while, so let me see where they were. They weren't too far down in here. I've been saying for a while that just sometimes the simple things that you want, you find yourself making over and over again. So I looked at what was available in here. Shouldn't have folded all of these up, should I? Let's have a look. No, wasn't that one. Wasn't that one either. Oh, here they go. They're down here. Right. That I wanted a tick and a cross. And I wanted one with a solid background, one red, one green. Well, there's my tick. That's not tricky, is it? So let me have a look at the layers that I've got in here. And can I just make that green? So if I go over here, there's the green. No problem. Got my green tick. Ah, my red cross. Not totally. I thought that green's much nicer, isn't it? Should we take that green? Let's take that green and apply it to there. Right. Not quite there. Not quite there at all. But not far off. So the difference between this accept one, the tick, and these is this isn't actually punched through. This one I'm seeing the background. This one I'm not. That's handy for me, because it means this is totally separate, which means all I need to do is scoot it round, and now I've got a cross. And I would want that red as well, so I would make the background red while we're at it, like that. But I'm going to have to do something here in terms of, I'm going to either have to make that tick white or make this knocked through, which isn't that tricky, because we can just do that and take it away. And now these match. So I started with a blue tick and a green plus, but I've ended up with what I particularly wanted. So point being, don't rule these assets out as being useless, because they might be just what you need, but not for iOS development. I mean, if you are doing iOS development, fabulous. But if you look in here, you've got a whole range of assets that you could repurpose. Okay. Right, let's leave that alone and go into the next one. So let me have a look at that. Oh, let's get tricky. Let's get really tricky. How about something nice like that? Don't need the assets again at this stage, so we need all the space we can get here. Right, that is just made up of a range of shapes. And all I've done is like group them together and started building it up. So let's try something like that. It looks tricky. It looks trickier than it is. So let's put that next to it. So we've got a working area, and we will have that size. We are going to need a background on it, preferably a dark background. So I'm just going to copy that one onto there and scale it to my artboard, which is 500. Right. Oh, D says, what's the difference between SVGs and strokes? I thought SVGs were just vector files and strokes are just something in those files. Right, they are. That's exactly right. But the way that an SVG interprets the content of its file, I mean, it is just written out in text. If you open an SVG, you should be able to read it as text. But different applications interpret that code in different ways. So just to stop any problems, which means I can open this SVG in any application that I need to and be confident that it will look the same, I choose not to work overly with strokes unless there's no way around it. It's just a personal preference in terms of working. But you've got that completely right. Absolutely. Right, so we need this. How to start. Not actually as difficult as it looks. If you look here, we've got the background, we've got the lights, we've got one of the background shapes, we've got another background shape, we've got the actual button in the middle, the bit that's going to turn, and we have this tiny little thing that's going to indicate, we could even make that a different colour, couldn't we? That tiny thing there. And the rest is fairly straightforward, she said. Right, shall we do the easy bit first? Let's do the easy bit first. And I'm not concerned about whether it's the right size or not. All we're going to need is, we'll start off with the background one, which has got a rather offensive colour on it there. Right, let's make sure that that is 300 pixels. And put that, no, we don't want to do that. Oh, no. Right, come on. Right. Let's put that in the middle there. Right. It could do with being a bit of a grey, some kind of grey. Like that. That'll do-ish. Oh, Renee. Renee says he could watch this all night. I don't think Mrs. Renee would be as thrilled as you. But you never know. You never know. Right, so this is going to be the background bit. And it's just a case of having the right number of circles. So I think from memory it was, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 3 is going to make up the actual control. So I'm just going to make that one a bit smaller. Now what I do to make this easier is I make them the most hideous colours, because they're all going to get changed anyway. And I think that one was nearer that. So it needs to be a bit smaller than that. About that big should do it. And again, I make that a really different colour. That looks about right. That doesn't look bad at all. Now, at the moment, all of these are very, very flat. And all we need to do is apply different styles to them to make this look right. So if we grab hold of this, we have our styles in here, our MacBite styles, and we had a silver one. Doesn't quite match that. That's a different one. Oh, well, what we can do is we can make sure that we have this looking correct by going on there and choosing that and going back over here and adding the style. So this is going to be our silver 2. We'll rename that to, yes, silver 2 will do. And have a whole range of them. And make sure we've selected that and apply it, and now we have that matching. And you can see not only did that change the fill of it, the gradient fill, but it also lifted it off the background. Oh, Renee says he would watch in silence. Oh, Renee, come on. I do expect the odd ooh. We need an ooh, Mike.
Ooh.
Right, so we've got the top bit there. We now need something on this yellow one, which needs to be much darker. Maybe not that dark. Maybe that dark. And then we need to put an effect on it. Now, what effect do we need on it? Well, if we're trying to work from another file, but to create... So we're trying to work from the one on the left, but we're trying to create something new on the right. Then one option is to make sure that you've selected this. And you can see it's a bevel and emboss, it's a 3D, and it's an outer shadow. Oh, this is looking complicated. But you could just add that as another style over here. Which means you could pop into there, just select it and apply that. So if this was a totally different file, a totally different shape, it would all work just by transferring it across. So styles really are your friend. Right, that leaves just the back bit. I don't think we put too much on the back bit. What did we do with the back bit? Let's have a look. We selected that bit. And let's have a look in here. An outer glow and nothing else by the look of it. Right, but what we can do again, we're working from this shape here, go into the styles, add it as a style, I'll worry about naming it later, and apply that to the background. And we now have that, so we're almost there. But the trickiest bit's yet to come, isn't it? How on earth do we do this thing? But we've got one tiny little circle that needs to go on there. And it was about there, wasn't it? So hold that down and put that on. Right, that one, again, very flat. But you can do that with your effects. So your effects in here. And you can apply whatever effects it needs. Because we're working from over here, though, we could have that as an interior shadow or something like that. So it is an inner shadow it was. And it was 50, we'll say 51.7. Right, so let's go over here and put an inner shadow on it. And take that up. That was 9, and I think that was 7. And there you go. You've got that little pushed in look. You could take that a bit further and you could apply a colour to it. Green and red work well, but probably not quite that green. So maybe take that down a bit just to indicate where that actually is. You usually have some kind of light. Right, but that leaves, let's take that back to grey. That leaves the outside. Who's got a clue on the outside? There's a few ways to do this, but it's not as tricky as you would imagine. I like to do it in a way that I can edit it, and there's a few ways that you can do that. So these over here started life as individual shapes, but they need to be placed in just the right place to make them work. But they are, if we actually zoom in and look at them, you know, it's just if we double click it, it's like a square. That's it, it's just like a square. So if we're going to do that over on this one, we need to start with a square. So let's make a square. So I'm holding the Option key down and I have got a square. And now I need to work out if it's too big. It's possibly a fraction too big. So let's look at the size of it. Would that work if we made it 10, or is that going to be too small? No, I think 10's about right. Okay, now we need to focus on this one over here, because there's no point just grabbing it and doing this because it's not turning around. So that won't work. What we need to do with this shape is get it lined up with that shape there. And then there is a feature known as Power Duplicate. So if I take a copy of that, I Command and J, and that duplicates it and it puts it here. And then I put it where I want it to go. And then I Command and J again. And what it does is it repeats the offset from the first shape. So I duplicated that and I moved it there. And there is an offset there. And when I duplicate it again, it duplicates the offset. And it duplicates more than the offset, to be honest. So let's get rid of those. Take this, do a Command and J. Where's it put it? Where have you put it? Is it right on the top of it? Let's have a look. Yes, it is. So if I move it to the side and I change the size of it fractionally, so we take it down by 1 millimetre, and then I duplicate that. So let's make some space and duplicate that. And what will happen is we'll get that kind of effect. That is Power Duplicate. So how are we going to use that to help us? Because we don't want them disappearing off. We want it to appear next to it and next to it and next to it. So let's just have a quick look at what we've got. That is what we want. So how are we going to do that? Well, the first thing we need to do is it needs to rotate. Now we can do that, but there's the rotation handle, and if I rotate, it's rotating around its own centre point. So we need to move where the rotation is. And there's a tool for that at the top, Enable Transform Origin. And we need to take that right down to here, because we want a duplicate of that, but we want it to rotate, when we rotate it, around the edge of the dial. So we've done that. The next step is to duplicate it, and duplicate it in what way? So I'll do the Command and J, and it will duplicate it, and it's put it bang on top of that one. So if we toggle the bottom one off, you can see that's where it is. The two are bang on top of one another. The first thing I need to do is to tell it what degree I want it to move. And I do that in the rotation down here. But what degree do I want it to move? No idea. No idea. If I put something in like 10, it will do it. So let's do 10. And then in the next one, duplicate that. And that's not quite what we want. It's putting it on top of each other. So you do have to be careful with these bits in here. Let's get rid of that one. So we've got just the one we want. What are you doing? There we go. We've got one shape there with the right center point. Right, so duplicate it. And how you do it is to go into here, and we're working around 360 degrees because it's a circle. So let's put 360 in. You can do mathematical calculations in those fields. So I'm going to put a slash in and divide it by what? Well, the number that I want. So if we look over here, there was quite a few. I don't really want to calculate that lot. Shall we say there's 40 and see how that looks? So if I put 36 divided by 40, it will put it next to that. And then if I Command and J, it will repeat that and put them all the way round. And because I did it with a mathematical calculation, it will match up at the other end and I don't have to worry about it. You will notice here there's actually one missing. And that was because it was to indicate that you were starting here and then you were turning up the volume by going round. You can take one away if you want, doesn't matter. But that is how you do it. Now, that's okay, but we haven't got the colours. And what we've got here at the moment is all of these individual shapes. Now, what I do, because I don't want to have to do half of this again. One, I can put that in a group. If I want this to be editable down the line, for whatever the reason, then keep a copy of that. So duplicate the whole thing. So I've got two groups. But turn off this group. And I can even put, just copy. And that indicates to me I'm not actually going to use it. Right. So I'm working on this particular group of shapes. And inside there, I'm going to select every single one of them. And I'm going to turn them into one shape. So I don't want individual shapes. I want one shape that consists of all those squares. So I'm going to use a Boolean operation, which is add. And I now have one shape. It says curves. Doesn't need to be in the group anymore. Let's put it up there out of the way. But we don't need the group anymore. And I've got one shape. That's important. If I put a colour in that, it's going to colour them all. I don't particularly want to sit there and colour them all individually. That way madness lies. So I don't particularly want to do that. But they are now all one shape. And we know that we can put a gradient on that, don't we? So we've got a fill up here. We can choose a gradient fill from there and start fiddling with it. That we can do. We also have the gradient tool here. So it's the fill tool stroke gradient tool. So it's a gradient tool. Right. I want to put a gradient on there and I want one of these conical gradients. And at the moment it's all grey. That's the starting point. It goes all the way around here and this is our ending point. Right. That's actually cutting through a shape, so I might decide to lose that shape later. But what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put a starting colour in it. No, that's the ending colour. So I'm going to put an ending colour of red in it. And then you can see what happens over here. Now, the reason this is going into grey and just looking dirty is I haven't put the other colour on it yet. But this point, if I put the green one on it, it's going from red through grey to green. Why is it going through grey? It's going through grey because there is a colour point there and it's grey. Now, I want that to be yellow, so it matches this one over here, or even orange. But I'm going to put yellow at that point. I think I moved the other one. If I click away then, you can see what we've actually got there. Now, this one is cut in half because the gradient is cutting right through it. We can just move the gradient round. This gradient can move. So if we wanted that to be just past that or just before that, just move the gradient and then it doesn't cut through one of the colours. Alternatively, you could go in there and start editing the curves and get rid of that box. But that is neat and tidy and we've replicated that. We got any questions in there?
D says, would there be a way to make the squares that are increasing volume be incrementally brighter using an FX? So as you twist it, it brightens up more.
Possibly. I've got another example which will show you it appearing. So let's work through this next example and see if that's what you mean. Really, what you're doing in Affinity Designer, it's artwork, so it's not an interactive thing. There are applications where it's left interactive, so you can actually make mock-ups. That's not what we've got here. But I appreciate that you may well want to work with these things where you've got it set to 10% and then 40% and then 90%, and you want the graphics to be different. So hold that thought. Let me have a look, see which one would fit that. I've got one that's a variation on a theme, and I've got one with circles. Let's do the circle one. Right, because if you're enjoying this, we can do more of this next week. Let me know if you want to do more of this next week. Right, let me show you this one, which is this one. Similar process, similar kind of thing, only this is just representative of like the lights. I haven't put the dial in the middle of this. I wanted to test something in relation to the lights. So in here we have a gradient, and if this is a little bit on the finicky side, I can do that. So I could export that, I could export that, I could export that, and then I can export it like that. Is that the kind of thing you're looking for? Let me show you how that one works.
They all want more.
They all want more.
They all want more.
More. Right, okay. Let's shove this to one side, shall we? I do believe we can do that. Let's shove that to one side and let's recreate it. Exactly the same principle. So once you understand the principle, the rest of this is simple. So let's get a circle. I have no idea if that's about right. Yep, it's not far off, so that will do. Let's put that there. Oh, Renee wants much more. Right.
Peter's going to send you some chocolate hobnobs.
Oh, proper ones. And they've got to be gluten-free, that's the problem. And the chocolate should be on the top. Right, I'm going to make this a different colour so we can see it, so we know what we're working around. But this time, instead of it being a square, it's a circle. I'm going to make a circle. I'm going to make it much smaller than that. Can't remember what size these were, and it probably isn't going to tell me. But a little bit bigger than that, I think. So that's 14 pixels. Probably 16 to 18 would work well, probably. Right, I'm going to line that up with here. You need to work out how close you want it to that, but seeing as though this is just a display, I'll put the dial on later. That will probably do. So that's 16 pixels. Right, you need to make sure that you can move the centre of rotation. So let's move that centre of rotation down to there, indicated by the green and the red. And you're ready to replicate at that point. So all we need to do is Command and J, and then do the same thing. So how many do we want? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, probably about 30, I would guess. So all I need to do in there is put the 360 of the circle divided by 30 and move it. And that looks about right. And then Command and J all the way round. There we go. I know there's some at the bottom that I don't need. I'm about to get rid of those. But we have all the shapes. We don't even need the middle one. So I can get rid of the middle one. And then in here, I'm just going to grab the bottom ones. And I think we're about right there. I think they're a little bit small, but it'll do. It'll do. Right, same principle with this. All we need to do with that is make it one shape. So we union those together. Then we need to apply, if we look closely at these, we've got a kind of inner shadow to give us some depth on it. Not that it's going to look that impressive with it being white, but we will put an inner shadow on it. So in our effects in here, inner shadow, let's take this up. Can we see it? Have an offset? Yep, it's starting to show at that point. We can tell better when we've got the colours on it. Right, I was then experimenting with how can I make this graphic editable so we can take the colour away. So the first thing I did was think about one colour. And I thought, well, what if I put a circle in it? But that won't do, because then you'd have to go and edit the circle. So I thought, what if I used a pie? And got myself a circular pie. Colour doesn't matter at the moment. I do need to make sure that my circular pie is lined up with that properly. Do you know, it would probably have been easier to leave the circle there, but come on. Let's move that there. Can we need it to line up? I'm not even sure if it's big enough yet. And it doesn't matter if it's hugely bigger like that. We just need for it to line up like that. So obviously you can see how much bigger that is. That's way too big. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a MacBites orange fill. Not bad, no t-shirt. No t-shirt at all. Because it's just sat on top of it. It does mean you can move it round, but, you know, it's on top. Well, what if we just put it behind? No, that won't work either. It's there and it's moving, but no, it's not working. But what we could do is restrict it by putting it inside of the shape. So what we've done is that is now inside that shape. The top shape is masking the bottom one, which means we can move it round. So if I move that, none of them are coloured. But as I move this round, and like I say, it doesn't matter how much bigger it is, you can see that it starts colouring in the dots. Awesome. At this point, I think we can see that we probably don't have on this one enough in the way of an effect in here. We need that a bit bigger. I don't normally use that, I must admit. I use this and I open it up and I've got extra things that I can see in there. So let me take that off the screen just so I can do this and we can get something in there like that. So let's get that. That looks great. I've got some kind of depth on that. Then the next thing I did was take this pie that I've got and just duplicate it. It doesn't matter if we'll hide the first pie. But what I would tend to do with the first pie is I would make it, as I leave it, that it's not showing anything, that it's in this shape at the bottom and none of the orange is showing through, and then I don't have to hide it. But this pie, the next one, which is this one here, all I need to do is make sure it's got the right fill on it, and then that will work. So I'm going to take that right round to there. We would probably at that point have that like that, and it's covering the whole thing. All we then need to do is apply the right fill. So the right fill being, in the fill options up here, we've got gradient. In the type, we have a conical, which is going to be circular. Have you actually applied that? I think you have. But I'm going to need the gradient tool so I can see it. And there is the orange. So we want this again red at the end. So the end needs to be red. The beginning needs to be green. The halfway mark, now that's going to be tricky working out which is the halfway mark at this point. Let's move that round. So red's there. Right, that is fine. So the halfway mark on our gradient is about here. So put that on and put that as amber. And now we have an editable gradient. It's not quite as bright as the other one. I think we've got too much of an inner shadow on it. So that's better. That's much better. Right, and then all we need to do with this second pie, which is the gradient, is double click on that, going into this tool here, which is our node tool. And when we select that, we get these red handles. And that is how you can do that. So you could export it looking like that. You could then go in and edit it and then export it looking like that. So it's not quite interactive in terms of the output, but it does remain editable for you. What I have seen people do is like create massive palettes of colours and manually fill in each dot. Don't do that. No, just don't do that. That just gives you so much work. Whereas this method of doing it doesn't give you that much work at all. It's just a matter of thinking through, how can I make that appear or disappear or whatever. And I chose the pie. The pie is your friend in this regard. The pie gives you a lot of flexibility with it. Right, do we have any more questions?
Don't think so. Dee asked a question and then decided everything she just said was pointless because she could use your method with one object and set bright with one side dark and gradually getting brighter.
Okay, well, you can have multiple pies as well. You could put another pie on that if you wanted to, and have it like, shall we see if we can do a dark pie? Let's duplicate that pie for speed. And instead of having it with a canonical colour, the conical colour in it, if we put a grey in it, and yep, that would work. We just need the either a different blend mode. That'd make it darker. That's too dark though. Is that making it brighter? Let's do a multiply, but let's take it down in intensity. So one option, if you wanted it to be lit up more on one side than the other, in this pie, you'd do it the other way actually, wouldn't you? Like that. You could have it like that. So it's darker at the end and then you're controlling the opacity of it. That's a multiply and 50%. If you wanted it more than that, then you'd really see the difference like that.
Tracy says, what's the point of the small pie?
Which small pie? The orange small pie. There's 3 pies on there. There is the small orange pie that's not doing anything anymore. But if I decided that I didn't want it to be multicoloured, like you get the client that's like, I want it multicoloured, and the minute it's multicoloured, they don't like it, then I can just go back to it. I can turn off that pie, I can go back to this one, and now it's just going up in orange. So that's the point of the smaller pie. We just did it, first of all, with a solid colour. But what I did with that pie was turn it into a slice of pie that's so small, it's not showing through any of these shapes at the moment. So I've just left that there in case I want it in the future. I very seldom delete anything. I'll tend to put, if we think about that pie and any other bit that I didn't want to use, I think in one of the other ones I duplicated something, hadn't I? I tend to put a folder at the bottom, a group at the bottom that just says NIU, not in use. But it means I can go back and edit. So I think one of the others, it was this one that says copy. That is an editable copy of those shapes. So I would just put that out of the way and say it's not in use. So it was just, that was the first one we did, not the second. Not needed for what we're doing now at all. We would only have had that pie, but Dee wanted to know if you could make it darker like that. And then as long as that's a pie, then you can turn that back. hang on, wrong Pi. Just a minute. Pi not showing. That's right. So you'd probably want it lightening up from this side. So that's why we now have 3 Pis. Does that help, Dee?
Everyone says it's amazing. And can we do more next week?
Okay, we'll do more next week. How about that? We'll do more of those next week. We can have great fun with that for lots of weeks. Okay, let's head into here. So, coming up next week, we have more Affinity Designer, apparently. It's not on demand, is it? It's by demand at the moment.
Yeah.
Right, but on demand, we have everything available on the MacBites After Hours playlist. And you can find that at macbites.co.uk/After Hours playlist. We, of course we do love you guys. If you love us, can you give us a like? It really makes a difference. Do you know what would be good after the event, Mike?
What would be good?
A comment. YouTube love comments. It means they know there's a real person watching. You can't leave a comment during the show. I know that's stupid. I know that, and you know that. YouTube, yeah, they don't know that. But a comment, you know, like when you think in the week, oh, I wonder what's coming in After Hours next week. Go back to the last show and leave a comment. Then we know you're alive as well. Oh dear, great fun. Right, you can follow everything I'm doing at elainegiles.com/VIP. We have great fun on there as well. And there is the MacBites mail at macbites.co.uk/macbites-mail. We are also in Slack. Oh, do we have fun in Slack? We should have mentioned about Slack, shouldn't we? That if you're getting excited because it says Pro at the bottom of Slack, don't. That way madness lies. They've given us a free trial for a month. We're not quite sure either. We've been on there 2 years. But they've just enabled it. So if you posted something and it dropped off the end, because you only get 10,000 messages and then it goes into the archive, now would be a good time to go look for it. But it's nothing we did. They did that all by themselves. But we do have fun in Slack. It's where we carry on the conversation. If you would like to join us, it is macbites.co.uk/Slack. We do. We have great fun in there. Right. Any questions on that? Oh, Renee says he's going to do comments for all the shows. Oh, Renee. Oh, you are just too cool. Have a good week. We will indeed have a good week. Glad you enjoyed it. And Patience says, always leave these sessions feeling so much more equipped to work in Affinity. I think the thing with Affinity is just there's techniques. And once you've got the technique, you can run with the same technique, but make so many different styles of graphics. The object, as far as I'm concerned with that, is making sure that what you can do is keep your artwork as non-destructive as possible so you can go back and just tweak it slightly. So if I'd coloured all of that, and then there was the question about can you make it darker, be like, oh, I'm going to have to recolour it all. But because it's done just with the impact of layers, it all remains editable and you can make variants and it's far quicker. Right, let me get the comms thing up. That's the one, I think, isn't it? There we go. That's where you can get hold of us. So, I'm going into the chat so I can see the chat now. Oh, Patricia's been back and added comments. Excellent. I'll go and have a look at those. Oh, now that looks like a lovely name, and I do hope I pronounce it right. Is it Maripat? That's a lovely name, isn't it?
Maripat Vulbecker.
I'm not attempting the surname. No, it would just be cruel. So I'm not doing that. But hello to you. You're very, very welcome. You even went back and gave us thumbs up to shows you hadn't watched. Do you know, it's so funny in the week. I think people use the thumbs up as a kind of bookmark so they can go and look at the shows that they've liked. So it gets likes in the week before we've even started. But do you remember that time about 3-4 years ago? We had a live session planned. It wasn't an after hours. It was an actual live session. So something like, make a newsletter in Affinity Publisher, and somebody had put a dislike on it. We hadn't even started. It was like 3 days before the show. We just laughed like drains. I mean, what possesses you? Maybe it was an accident, do you think? And then it disappeared before the show. So maybe that was their way of tracking it. I never knew. Can you track what you dislike? I mean, why would you want to? No, I don't know. But that one was a good one. That was so funny. Oh, dear, dear, dear. Renee's going to copy and paste comments in all the shows. Oh, Patience says, your teaching allowed me to finish an assignment for one of my graduate courses. Much appreciated. You're very, very welcome. And Patricia's adding the save to playlist in a playlist to watch later. That's another good plan. You can always get to the shows in a few ways. You can use the playlist, which is available in YouTube. If you type in MacBites After Hours, it will show you the playlist. The other way is to use the website. And on the website, underneath all of the videos, you will see what we did in the show. But on the website, we're starting to put it underneath the video on the website. So macbites.co.uk, and then there's the After Hours section, and all of the shows are in there. So if you can't find a show, try the website. Mary Pat. That's lovely. I'm liking that. Oh, she's loving your pronunciation.
I know.
Oh.
That's French.
Mike's good with languages. I'm not. No. Well, unless it's a computer language, and then I'm red hot. But if it doesn't involve like dots and dashes, no, that's not my area of expertise. I have been to France, but that's about it for me, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. I made myself understood.
True.
I had a French phrase book with me. Do you know the best phrase in the phrase book? And my mum, and I was about 13 at the time. I think I'd just had my 13th birthday. And she says, if you're going to France, we need to get you a phrase book. So I said, right, fine. So she bought this phrase book. So I'm looking through, and it's things like, I would like to buy, I would like to book a hotel room. And there was a whole section on photography. And I thought, oh, that might come in handy. So I started reading it. Well, I was 13, so I was giggling. So I said, you want to have a look at this, Mum? So she looked at the phrase book and she said, oh, I hope you wouldn't be using that phrase. And she just burst out laughing. And when she said what the phrase was, my dad was, well, you know what he was like. I mean, he had a good sense of humour, didn't he? But he did not like this phrase. He didn't like me and my mother giggling about it all day. The phrase was, the useful phrase is if you go into a photography shop in France, can you enlarge this, please? So I was saying to Mum, that's not the only place that phrase might come in handy. But Dad didn't approve. He was a bit of a prude, wasn't he, Dad?
Mm.
I doubt they'd put that in these days. Would you? No, I can't see that being in there these days. Oh, dear. Right, okay then. Elaine's laugh there sounded like a squeaky toy. Oh, Lola did have a squeaky toy, didn't she, today? She was going crazy with that, but we better not get it out. She's asleep at the moment.
We took Chicken out.
Yes. And there's Big Chicken as well, isn't there?
Big Chicken's out there.
Big Chicken. She's got two big chickens.
Big Chicken.
This was because she ripped a hole in the backside of the smaller chicken that she had. But now she's got Big Chicken. So she's quite handy with that. Right, if you think of any demos you would like to see, let me know. Let me know. But obviously, Affinity Designer, you like that. We'll find something, Affinity Design. Well, I had 2 more dials that were totally different, but I jumped and went to the last one because you wanted to know about making them dark and stuff, and the pie inside it. So yeah, I've got more. We'll do more dials, dialing it up with dials. There you go. There's your show title right there. Okay. Do we have any final call for questions? Do we have any further questions?
Don't think so.
You're very welcome, Carol. I hope you found it useful. Are you doing book club at the weekend? I was, what's the word I'm groping for? Less than thrilled. It's a health and fitnessy, diety thing, Mike. Yeah, no.
I know, I got the email.
Yeah, and I thought, what would I have preferred? Oh, something like Atomic Habits, or I know we've done GTD, but it wouldn't stop us doing it again, would it? Like Smart Notes, because Bo's vanished, so he's not come back to do that one. That was a good book. But there's so many books like that I thought health, wellness, fitness, really. We all know we should eat less, drink less, and exercise more. Right, there's 7 weeks sorted, so can we do a real book now? I'll probably pop in and have a look, but if it gets all like, let's all count our steps and let's all do this, no, it's going to be no, let's not. But that could just be me. Oh, really? Health and fitness. I mean, some of the other books that they've done I'd never heard of, like Stephen Johnson, but it was a really, really good show, that. But not health and fitness. No. It's just something you've got to do that rather than sit and enjoy and read about. But I will pop in and I will report back. Okay, so if there are no more questions... Oh, Carol's not doing it this... I'm not surprised, Carol. I'm not surprised. It's an hour earlier as well, to add insult to injury. But we will find out. Have I ever worked with ViewSonic whiteboard software? No, I haven't. The nearest thing to that we had a demo of, do you remember Derek did that demo?
Yeah.
Oh, it was a fabulous system. It was, I don't think it was a whiteboard. I think the questions were projected on the screen. But it was a handheld thing, and he had like 30 of them that the children had in the classrooms. And then the questions went up, and then they used the A, B, or C on them. That was amazing. But no, other than that, no, I haven't. Now, you've seen... What was that Microsoft thing called? The big screen, the digital screen.
Can't remember.
Was there an app as well? I think there was. Was
yeah.
it Teams? Teams board?
Or Skype. I think it was a Skype board.
Skype board?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, it was a physical thing and it was a board, but then you'd have to go into work, wouldn't you? And it's not really worth it. Just to look at the board. Oh, hello, Paul. Good to have you with us. Even if you have been in and out. You can always catch up later. Right, okay. We are going to head off then and find some chocolate to put on the right side of a hobnob, I think. Yeah. I was swindled. I was so excited. And then I got the box open and I'm like, these are upside down. But they're also not quite the same. They're not far off. They're very, very good, but they're not 100% there. So fingers crossed. Well, what we need to do is go to Slattery's, but we'll find out. We'll worry about that on another day. But for the moment, I'm going to say good night from me.
And good night from me.
And we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.